Kolpack and Izzo Podcast style, brought to you by Gate City Bank, the Minot to Missouri edition. I'm in Minot. Kolpack is in Fargo for the time being. We're heading to Springfield tomorrow for the North Dakota State football game against Missouri State. Not quite sure I ever thought we would say a pivotal game with Missouri State in the third game of this weird spring season, Jeffrey, but this is really interesting. There's a lot of eyeballs that are going to be on this game tomorrow.
Dom, I think it's hugely pivotal, and it's pivotal in this respect, and we'll get into it in the pregame show tomorrow in more detail, but we have to know if last week was just an off day for the Bison or if this team is just simply not that good. Because after two games in the spring, let's put it mildly here, the first game was okay at best. It was an average performance. Last week was not okay. It was very sub-average. And they got to start trending the other way, or this season's going to be over before the UND game.
Yeah, it might be over before it starts here, as we're just into the third game. Is it too simplistic to just look at what the quarterback does in the game tomorrow, or how do you evaluate that?
Yeah, it is. And Big E actually alerted me to this fact, and I guess we glossed over it a little bit, thinking the backups would be better. But from that fall game, Dom, they are missing 6 starters on offense. So you start with Trey Lance, you got Dylan Radence, you got Carson Schoenig, you have Phoenix Sproles, Adam Caulfield, Hunter Lupke. That's a lot of firepower there. And I think we took for granted, because we've seen this team reload over the years, we took for granted that the backups would just simply plug in like you take an outlet and a cord into an outlet. And it just hasn't been that way after 2 games.
I guess on the flip side of that argument, I'd say all we've seen over the last 10 years is the backups come in and perform.
True.
You know what I mean? Like all we've seen from, if it was Grant Olson getting hurt, the Travis Beck would come in. If Travis Beck got hurt, Nick DeLuca came in. You know, I know those are Hall of Fame Bison players I'm talking about, but that's the kind we've kind of got used to. But you're absolutely right. I mean, if you even take out the NFL guys, if you take Lance and Radens out of there, those 4 still are all conference players. All of them are, and
Yep.
That's a huge blow. And I thought Brock Spack put it perfectly. The Illinois State coach earlier said, "We're playing a bunch of young guys. I have no idea what's going to happen." And he lost obviously his team got ravaged as well. I think that's kind of the MO for some of these Valley coaches.
Well, and the quote unquote power teams, they all lost their dudes.
Yep.
Northern Iowa lost 5 or 6 guys. They lost 3 that are training for the NFL. Their linebacker got hurt. So a couple of weeks ago, he's out for the year. Illinois State, you mentioned, NDSU, South Dakota State. Kate Johnson is or was the most explosive player in the Missouri Valley Football Conference. He's not there. They're missing a couple corners. They're missing a couple linebackers, correct?
Yep.
I think Tetzloff came back. One of their running backs, CJ Wilson, transferred. Yep. It's hard to plug in guys when they're redshirt or true freshmen, and they haven't been afforded that year to physically develop.
I'm curious, Entz pointed this out in his press conference on Monday about deficiencies and then putting guys in the right spots to perform. Does that mean we're going to see guys we haven't seen play tomorrow?
Well, how long can you wait?
Right. I'm right there with you. Right.
How long can you wait with this team? Well, if you want to make the playoffs, you can't have more than 2 losses.
And this goes back to something you asked him a while back. Says, are you going to trade, quote unquote, the wins for playing more guys? It might coincide with one another.
I don't know what you do now.
Yeah.
I mean, I still think you have to play more guys for the long haul of your team.
Yep.
And do you just, and you can't really write off the spring, can you?
Well, if things go sideways tomorrow, it will be over.
Yeah.
I mean,
lose to Southern Illinois and Missouri State and be a playoff team.
Yeah, that's it. It'll be over and done with if they can't win tomorrow. I'm just curious what that means. Does that mean we see somebody different than Dom Jones on the back end? Do we see changes on the offensive line? I mean, it's certainly, he said, deficiencies and putting guys in position to succeed. And that I don't know what that means.
Yeah, I asked Matt Entz at the press conference on Monday if the depth chart was solid and it's going to stay the same, and his response was anything but. Right? In other words, I think this week is an open enrollment for positions, just because you've been number 1 since 2019. Well, I mean, what have you done for me lately?
Right. And then also you look at some of these guys that just got inserted into starting spots. Does that mean we see a true freshman at right tackle tomorrow? I mean, that would be crazy.
Well, it would be because they're not really physically developed. I mean, the Miller kid's what, 280 maybe?
Right.
Gray Zabel is 280, something like that. This is their year to get to 300, not to play right away.
And that's the dilemma that they're in. And we don't know if Dawson Weber or Hunter Lukey, I would doubt they're probably going to play tomorrow. We don't know. I mean, we're going to find out.
Well, they're still listed number 1 on the depth chart. And at what point do you not list them anymore?
Yeah, the depth chart is pretty much as good as the piece of paper that it's printed on right about now. So that's the part that's really intriguing to see. I look also, you mentioned those couple guys we're talking about. We got to talk obviously about Zeb Nolan's play. Where do we see it get even more simplistic for him tomorrow?
Well, he's got to make plays with his legs, and you can't have a Bison quarterback be that one-dimensional. And again, the head coach said as much. He didn't mince much words there. I mean, he was telling it like it is. So give him credit for that. I mean, It wasn't like he was trying to, poo-poo this. I think is Cam Miller ready to go? Because you need the dual threat quarterback. This offense is based on a quarterback who can run. And so far, and I thought Zeb would be a little faster for whatever reason. He hasn't showed any elusiveness to get away from the pocket. And that fumble, it was a big fumble last week. It was a blitz from the right side, which is his vision side. It's not the blind side. He's got to feel that, Don. He's got to feel that pressure come from the right side, step up in the pocket and deliver it. The game was 17-7, and they're at midfield.
Right.
And they have a chance to get some momentum going. And he just, for whatever reason, didn't see if it was, I think it was a corner or a linebacker blitz. It had been one of the two. And those are plays you got to feel.
I wonder if they're going to put Cam Miller in, put him not in 2nd and 10. And granted, that was the that was just the byproduct that the offensive line wasn't moving last Saturday, but they can't put him in positions where there's no chance of succeeding because no one thought that Cam Miller was going to throw the ball the times he was in last week.
Yeah, it was pretty obvious, wasn't it?
Yeah.
In there for almost a wildcat look. You just don't put a guy in there to replace a throwing quarterback and go back to Pat. That was like Captain Obvious move there.
I mean, I don't know anything about football, and I pretty much figured out that they were going to be running in that, and neither of those plays worked. And that's again, this goes back, we chatted about this on Monday, that either Nolan can't move as well as we were led to believe, or there's something just not kosher there. And I don't know what that is. And maybe we'll figure that out tomorrow. He hasn't been accurate either, Kolpack. That's the other thing.
No. He's got a strong arm, but yeah, the accuracy has been less than 50%, and you need to be 65, 66, somewhere in that ratio. And early in the year against Youngstown, a team that had a new defense, and Southern Illinois, which there was throws there that even when they threw it out of bounds, it almost went to the other team.
Yeah, you're right. There was one that was trying to get over the defender's head, and almost went right to a defensive lineman. It was almost a pick.
Yep. I know he hasn't played full time since 2018 and early in that season, but at 2 games is enough, right?
Yes.
I mean, at some point you have to produce in this situation. I don't know what kind of a leash there is, but it can't be very long.
See, that's the question. We've talked about this going in. They
literally have nothing.
They have literally nothing behind them. That's the thing, and that's no slight to.
Well, we don't know.
And Gretz, but we can't imagine either one of them would come in and play. I mean, wow.
Dom, Cam Miller threw for almost 6,000 yards in high school.
Man, that would be something else if they had to go down that road. That would be stunning, considering we thought Nolan was going to be the guy for 20 some odd starts, not only the spring, but also into the fall. And that would be completely torn up if we get to that point.
Well, South Dakota has a true freshman quarterback, although it didn't work out so well.
South Dakota State's doing the same thing.
Yep. And how about that scheduling, by the way? So you put a team, South Dakota, on the road, Illinois State. They come back on probably late Saturday and try to prepare on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Wednesday you're on a bus.
Have
You're
to, yeah, yep, have to
probably doing a
drive.
walkthrough on the bus on the way to Grand Forks. I don't know how South Dakota, if Dave Herbster, if his hands were tied, or Bob Nielsen. I thought you'd hear a little more grumbling from Vermillion on that.
Yeah, that might come out this week during the Summit League basketball tournament. I'm not sure how much they were curving around that. I know they don't really intersect, and UND hockey I know is home tonight, on how much that has to do with but they're not really coinciding. So I don't really know.
There's a show at the Alaris. There's a show at the Alaris on Saturday, Sunday, and apparently they needed today to.
Well, there you go.
For it.
And that's tough on that front. UND took advantage, which I want to talk about in a second. Let's spend just a couple minutes on Missouri State, and we don't really know what to see out of Bobby Petrino's team. They won against Western Illinois last week. They played 3 games, Kolpack against Central Arkansas twice, and Oklahoma in the fall. What do we know about Mo State tomorrow?
Not a lot. I feel like this is almost Youngstown 2.0. We didn't know a whole lot about Youngstown when they came in.
Yeah.
At least Missouri State, there's more body of work there, and Petrino has been the coach since the fall. Quarterback is okay. I know they've struggled at quarterback, and it's been a while since they've had a really good one there. The receiver is pretty good, I think. Vic is a good receiver. He's one of the better ones in the conference. I would imagine Josh Hayes will line up on him at corner. And that's another thing. The Bison need to they need to play better in the back end.
No doubt about it. Absolutely. I mean, if you look at it, if Jaden Price is not out there, and he was slated as the starter, Talbert was playing more last Saturday, and he's a junior. I mean, there's another spot where you're wondering, okay, what's the deal there at corner?
Is Courtney Eubanks, true freshman, to get in the game somehow?
Yeah, maybe. I'm interested to see what Petrino does. And I know you mentioned this with Zach Staten last week when you guys were wrapping up in Carbondale. As much as we want to talk about Missouri State, this game is all about the Bison, frankly. You know, and it's all about how they play on Saturday.
Correct. And it's all about how and they're going to come out with a harder edge. There's no doubt about it.
You have to think so. Yep.
You don't win 39 in a row and don't come back with some sort of zest. So we expect that, but we need to see if the talent's there.
Yep.
Are you talented enough to win the Valley?
Have you heard what attendance expectations are, or whether they'll be there tomorrow?
6,000 is the slated capacity. Now, that's usually been an unusual crowd in a normal year. What we've seen in Missouri State. A couple thousand maybe would be a good crowd, I would imagine.
And they've done some really nice renovations to the Plaster Field. I can remember the first time I went there in 2010 with the old turf, and it looked terrible. They've renovated the seating there. They've got new turf there. They want to be good in football. Kyle Motes is the head of the FCS chair of the playoff committee. He's the Missouri State athletic director. He wants them to be competitive, and obviously that's why they went and hired Bobby Petrino to do that.
Right. And Bobby Petrino is a named coach.
Yep.
Hired Dave Steckel, who was a coach from Missouri. That didn't work out so well. Although it would have been nice if Steckel was, a nicer guy, I guess. I mean, you talk to people around that department in Missouri, he just didn't treat people that well.
No, from what we hear, no. It's a long road there at Mo State. I'm curious to see what happens there tomorrow. This is the Kolpack and Izzo Podcast, brought to you by Gate City Bank, on location, Kolpack and Fargo. I'm in Minot. We got to chat Summit League basketball tournament. That obviously tips off as well tomorrow. Crazy, we're thinking of basketball and football happening at the same time. Real quick, the awards came out yesterday for the league. Grant Nelson, Mr. Sixth Man of the Year. Cruiser, first team. No surprise there. Griesel made the second team. Quick comment there on Grant Nelson's year, from Mr. Basketball in North Dakota to the Sixth Man of the Year in the Summit League.
Yeah, it could end up being one of the great mid-major recruiting finds of this recruiting class, just because you get a kid from Devil's Lake who really wasn't highly recruited. Well, He was a bloomer, for one thing. He came on his senior year, and sometimes in the recruiting circles, that's a late bloomer. See these guys get on the AAU circuit when they're sophomores, and you know about them, or even freshmen. So 6'10", tough matchup, long. He's hitting the three. He's his confidence, obviously, since we first watched him on TV at the Nebraska games down in Lincoln.
Yeah,
that he was a deer in headlights kind of guy, and for good reason. It's a different level. But man, kind of like Vinny Shaheed came on in Shaheed's junior year. Vinny's first few games were not good, but he developed that confidence and swagger. And I see a lot of those same characteristics in Grant Nelson, that he's not afraid to take it to the hole on anybody.
No, that TCU game, I think, proved that right before his conference play started. And they had that windmill dunk against Western Illinois in the conference opener, and he opened eyes around the league. Heaven Hamling was named the newcomer of the year on the women's side. Renee Hopkins also on the newcomer team. Emily Dietz, Ryan Cobbins. I want to start there with what Hamling has meant. That's it. That's a player probably since Brooke Lamar. And remember, Lamar came in also a transfer from SIU when she came to NDSU, that she transformed things, but didn't have really the talent around her. Hamling's got it. And I think that's why this weekend is really intriguing for the Bison women.
It's a great start for Jory and his rebuilding project. That you need that point guard. You need somebody that can light it up from the outside. They need more inside pieces. There's no doubt about this program. And South Dakota State and South Dakota showed them that. It's just they're physically not up to matching up with those teams on a consistent basis yet. Now, can they beat them on a one-game deal? Yeah, absolutely. I think they get hot. They have good enough shooters that the three ball can change a lot of games, and Evan Hamling can change a lot of games. But underneath, Dietz is solid. Emily Dietz is a solid player, but they physically, there's nobody to match up with Hannah Shervin from South Dakota.
No.
South Dakota State has 3 or 4 gals and players that just are physically better than NDSU. So until that happens, it's going to be, it's admirable that they got this far in the rebuilding process. Now it's double tough to get from 3 to 1.
Do you have, so I think they're going to beat Denver. That means they would likely play South Dakota. Do you think they have any chance with USD on Monday if that were to come to pass?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they lost by 1 point down in, I mean, so they showed they can hang with them, and they have to get hot from the outside. They got to nail like 7, 8 3 balls, and somehow hope that South Dakota has an off night a little bit. And they're not that far off. I mean, it's not like 3, 4 years ago when it was over before they got to Sioux Falls.
I'm going to go on the limb here. I think they're going to beat USD. I think they're going to lose to South Dakota State in the Summit League championship game. And that alone will be a major milestone for that program to make it that far.
And keep in mind, there's going to be no fans at the Pentagon.
Yep.
So you take away that home court advantage that the Jacks have. And the Jacks lost their player of the year too. So it's not like they're full strength either.
On the men's side, we chatted about this earlier in the week on the video blog about how many teams we think have a shot. I think it's realistically, it's probably 4. I think UND could win a game. I don't know if they could win 2 to make it to Tuesday night. You agree with that? Do you have any more or less than that?
Yeah, I think Oral Roberts is a real threat.
Yep.
Missouri, Kansas City is not bad. They play that type of slow down game, that a low possession game that you never know with those games. I mean, again, if they get it to 55, 53 or something like that, there's no reason they can't win 3 in a row.
Yeah, I think a lot of Bison fans are just rubber stamping NDSU into the semis.
Absolutely
and
not.
That is,
no.
I mean, just because Kansas City's top 3 guys didn't play when the Bison were there, and granted NDSU was without a couple of its horses as well. I have no idea about that game Sunday night. And we've been down there in Sioux Falls, that late game, there are weird things happen then.
Well, it's strange because you feel like the tournament's been going on for a week by the time you get to that Sunday night game. Right? It's
yes.
You are.
You're the last ones. Literally everybody else has played until you, and you haven't yet.
You've been hanging around all weekend.
Yep.
And that's a long time to wait around and get going. We'll see if NDSU needs a good start. We'll see if that happens.
You want to give a prediction? I think it's going to be Oral Roberts. I think Oral Roberts is going to win this thing.
They're going to win it?
Yep.
They maybe do. South Dakota State needs to prove that it can get through this tournament, and something that's really been the upset bit, the bug's been biting them. They lost one of their best players. I think they're very beatable. South Dakota, the Bison show, they're beatable.
Yep. I think it's Oral Roberts, NDSU on Tuesday night in the championship game.
Those are the 2 teams that haven't lost anybody by injury.
Right. Bison played all their games. NDSU beat everybody in the league. That you can't underestimate that either, I think.
South Dakota losing Plitzowite, that's a big deal.
Huge deal. No doubt.
Some people thought he was a player of the year.
Yep. Oral Roberts guys, and you saw this when they came and played NDSU, when they get going, I mean, who's going to beat them? They're two of the best.
Well, they're going to have to D up Asmus and O'Banner somehow. And I don't know if you throw some funky defense. Maybe Dave saves something from playing.
He's been known to do that in the Summit League tournament. Before we wrap, you want to do some pick'em here?
Let's do it so I can keep my face on the nickel.
So the CAA is going to join the party this weekend. James Madison has played a couple games. Those are non-conference games, but as Jeff pointed out, we did this a couple weeks ago. They're only playing 6 games. That's to see if they can get as many in. The game actually is tonight. Albany is playing at New Hampshire. Albany opens the fall season in Fargo. They had one of the freshmen of the year. Jeff Undercuffler was the runner-up to Trey Lance for the Jerry Rice Award. What do you make here? You got to pick. These are 2 ranked teams playing here.
Correct. And I'm going in a year when the FCS, the star quarterbacks have left the building. Undercuffler is still there.
Yep.
I'm going Albany.
Yeah, I like Albany on the road too. UNH, tough place to play, but we'll see what happens there. So does SIU keep the magic going? They're playing at Youngstown tomorrow. This is a perfect, the trap game. SIU wins big over the Bison, and then they go and play at Youngstown. What do you think?
I would say yes if they were 2-0, but the fact they got embarrassed at UND,
That's a good point.
I'm still hanging with them. Yeah, so I'm taking SIU. They looked really sharp last week.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I think Youngstown, we talked about this, so it's going to be a struggle that I think we said they could lose their first 6 games before they even win one, and I think that would probably be the case tomorrow. James Madison is at Elon. We remember a couple years ago, Elon went. That's when McFeely was there in Harrisonburg when they beat JMU. Is there any upset potential tomorrow?
Yes, there is. Absolutely. Elon's got some pretty good stuff going. And I just think this year it's a weird year. I'm going with Elon.
Okay. Ooh, all right.
Yeah. Is it at Elon? It's at Elon, right? It's a road game for. Yep.
All right. I'm on JMU. I think they'll win that game.
You always take the safe way.
SDSU have any trouble with Western tomorrow?
No. SDSU has a rebound game, and Western's just so new. They're like Youngstown. It's going to be a battle for them just to win one game.
Yeah, I think SDSU gets healthy tomorrow after their loss in Grand Forks last week. Illinois State and Northern Iowa, Kolpack. The loser of this is done, right? Because they'd have 2 losses already, and they haven't played NDSU or SDSU yet.
Illinois State, I got the feeling when Spock, some of that soundbite from Brock Spack, that he seemed a little resigned.
Yes.
Already.
Yes.
But Northern Iowa lost a lot. This game's at the Unidome, correct?
It's in Cedar Falls.
Northern Iowa. Tough place to play.
Yeah, I think I'm with you there on UNI in that game. I think they'll bounce back there too after they had a good road win at Youngstown last week. I think you're dead on about what Spack was saying too. It just seemed like, we're not ready. We'll see you in the fall on that front. We'll save your pick for tomorrow for the pregame show, but give me a couple keys. What do you think for this game tomorrow in Springfield?
Well, there's so many keys with NDSU. I'm not sure where to start with this. Offensive line, Dom. I've not been impressed. I haven't seen a lot of holes. I don't know if they shake things up or what you do, but the ability to sustain a drive and too many 2nd and 8s, 3rd and 9s, they can't do that. I don't care against who. So number 1 will be O-line. And number 2, I need to see better defensive back play. Make a play.
Yep.
Pick something.
No turnovers yet.
Bison not forced a turnover yet.
Yep. I'm right there with you. Better quarterback play. I got to see.
Yeah, I mean, that's obvious. But...
Yeah. Yep. And something better on the back end. I think you're dead on about that. Force a fumble, pick off a pass, something on that. They got to do something there. Force the action. That's what was part of my prediction in the paper tomorrow. I had the Bison scoring a defensive touchdown. I called that in the paper tomorrow. Before we wrap, we got to talk about UND. That's the talk of the town out here, Kolpack. Everybody asks me, what's going on? UND football is 3-0 after they beat South Dakota. Otis Weah, the Moorhead kid, had 2 more touchdowns last night. Their defense clamped down on USD. They're the real deal. They're 3-0.
And they haven't had a running back like Weah. I know they had good running backs, Santiago and Oliveri and those guys. Weah is just another step better than those guys.
I agree.
Tackles. he's a high-end FCS running back. I mean, he's got FBS written all over him. He's that good. So that's number one. Number two, obviously they're opening holes in the offensive line. They're better up front on both sides of the ball than we thought they would be at this stage of the game. Everybody's going, well, wait till you get to the valley. The physical. It's gonna be,
That was me, by the way.
yeah. Guess what, Don? They're already there, and nobody saw it coming. And how could you? How could you? Won a playoff game. They got killed by the Bison in their matchups with NDSU. They were okay. It's not like they were a bad team, but physically, and they got embarrassed by NDSU. But boy,
they got embarrassed by South Dakota. Remember a couple years ago when they played down in Vermilion, and they just seemed like they were light years away, and that's not the case now. So we'll see. The next three are on the road. They go to Western, they go to Fargo, obviously, in a couple weeks, and then to Youngstown State. But right now, Kolpack, they're in the driver's seat to win this whole thing.
Yeah, favorable schedule, and give Bubba's team credit. They're taking advantage of it. 3
ranked wins to start the year for UND. So that'll wrap it up. Kolpack will be on the plane tomorrow, heading to Springfield with McFeely and Zach Staten. We'll have our Bison pregame shows tomorrow morning, 11 a.m. on WDAY Extra and Inforum.com. And, of course, the full pregame there. Of course, all our game day coverage at Inforum.com, the live blog, and then Mike, Jeff, Big E, Zach will all wrap things up at Inforum.com and WDAY. Safe travels, my man. We'll see you back in studio next Monday.
Sounds good, Dom. See you then.
All right, bud. We'll see you later. That's the latest edition of the Kolpack and Izzo Podcast, brought to you by Gate City Bank.